This is Platonic Prisoners Podcast.
I think there are grounds for believing that the first human societies were matriarchies. And I will say that there are, I would say some proof of this, right? Sort of like the Venus figurines that have been found everywhere from Austria to Spain, and they show these very bountiful female figures that are like supernaturally fruitful, like
Mhm.
that sort of like represents the fecundity of the earth. And they've been found everywhere. And they've been found like some of possibly the oldest settlements in the world. Excuse me. And so this points to the fact that there have been a goddess that was worshipped throughout the world. And also if you look at the oldest religions, they state that the first god was a goddess that created the other gods. So like in Babylon, we have Tiamat, the dragon goddess, who is the mother of all the gods. And follow the mythology, and then you will understand the culture, right? So like the cultures where you have like a patriarchal god, like a male god, that is
Mhm.
the societies where men have all the power. But if you go back, actually, the further you go back in time, and this again, like pointing out the fact that we take for granted that society is the way it is right now because it was very different once. And once women had even more rights, or at the least more respect as women than I would say they do today, or at the very least they had it better than the women, let's say in the 1950s. And but anyway, my original point is I believe that the first societies were matriarchies, and I think it makes sense because when we are born, the most important person in our life, who is that? Who's the most important person in our life?
The one who give birth.
Yeah, is our mother, right? Is our mother who we cling to,
Yeah.
and we imagine that the mother would be like a goddess in the eye of the baby. They have this human being who provides them warmth and safety and love and food. So the mother is the most important person in a person's life. And so, but and the reason why I say that is that you can understand a greater context by looking at the smaller context, right? So you can understand the tree by looking at the leaf, because the leaf is the tree in miniature, right? It's sort of like the microcosm of the macrocosm. So if we zoom out, so the smallest society in the world is the mother and the child. That is the smallest society. That is the basic foundation of society, is the mother and the child and the family as well. If you uh, if you zoom out in these ancient societies, then you would have a very similar relationship between the tribe and mother nature, right?
Mhm.
Where you have the tribe who who are as reliant upon mother nature to get food and warmth, etc., as the baby is from getting it from their mother.
Mm.
So in the earliest of times, we were completely dependent upon the whims of Mother Nature, of her generosity, her anger, what have you. So Mother Nature was the goddess that we worshipped in the beginning, that we prayed to get a good harvest, to get enough rain, to have a fruitful soil, and we gave her our thanks. Right. So the earliest religious artif- artifacts we found have been goddesses. So I think it makes sense from, if you look at like just what we know from anthropology and just from an anthropological point of view, an evolutionary point of view, a religious point of view, it makes sense that the original religion was centered around a goddess. And again, there are proof of this. Now something changed, right? So we have the oldest religion. So, and you can look this up. Like in Egypt, the first god that they worshipped was Uasit, and also Hathor, the cow goddess, and they created the universe, right? So that was like that was the original god that they worshipped. Then something happened, what we call the Aryan invasion, which is a controversial quote unquote theory. I don't I wouldn't say it's a theory, but it is apparently controversial for some reason. But that shouldn't deter us too much, because modern academia, I would say, is quite cowardly in some ways. They do fear going too back into the past, because they might find out something that would disrupt the status quo. But anyway, the Aryan invasion was a very real happening that took place around 2,000 years, where we have these more patriarchal, warrior-like tribe that descended from North India down through India, and they sort of conquered the Dravidian territories, and they arrived in the Near East, and they created the different kingdoms there, and Babylon and Assyria, and then they moved on into Greece, etc. And they conquered the indigenous tribes that existed in these places. And in these places, they worshipped the goddess, right? So in Egypt, they worshipped her as Wasit, the cobra goddess, and Hathor, the cow goddess. They conquered that, and then they instituted the reign of the pharaohs, and sort of like created a distance from the original goddess religion. And in Babylon, you can even see how this militaristic, cultural, religious takeover, how that is expressed in the myth of the Enuma Elish, where you have the Indo-Aryan with storm god Marduk, who sort of like represents the Indo-Aryan aristocracy, right? Who are very powerful and warrior-like, right? Big, big bearded guys, with spears and swords. And we have this god who fights Tiamat, the dragon goddess, the mother of the gods, right? The original goddess that we worship on the earth. And he kills her, and he takes over dominion of the earth. Yeah. And we have that story, which is called the Dragon Slayer story, everywhere where we have the Aryans, the Indo-Europeans taking over territory, right? So we have the Marduk. Even earlier in India, we have Indra defeating Sitra. We have Marduk defeating Tiamat. We have in Greece, Zeus defeating Typhon, Apollo. We have over there defeating Python. And so there was a shift through thousands of years where we originally have the matriarchies, the goddess religion, where women had very high status, where the children received the last name of the mother and all that. And then we have this patriarchal society who took over and sort of phased out the feminine religion. And what happens is that when you suppress the feminine by suppressing the goddess worship, you also suppress women, because women are an expression of the feminine, and that is the reason why in all the patriarchal societies, women have been suppressed. And that goes for Assyria, where I would say patriarchy and monotheism originated, and that is where we have the harem originated, and women having to walk with a head cloth. That is where that comes from. And we can clearly see an inspiration from Assyria, where they worship the sky god, the male patriarch. We see that in Islam, we see that in Christianity and Judaism. And in all those places, women have not had the best of times for hundreds of years. Now we're moving out of that. We're moving out of the Christian paradigm. We're moving into a new world, a global world, a world of greater equality, etc. But I would say that this world is still patriarchy, not because men necessarily rule, only men, but because of sort of like the psychological, the values that we have. It is like this very hierarchical, materialistic, outward-focused, result-oriented society that is very masculine, and that actually originates from places like Assyria, where the professional army was created, where iron weapons were created, and Babylon, where the banking system, the financial system originated. And this is where we have like the pyramids from, like the cigarettes, and this sort of like striving for the heights, striving for ascension, reaching the heavens, sort of like this human need for ingenuity and expansion and growth. And so this city-based life that we live in, that is very financially oriented, is all about success and money and power, is very patriarchal, because like a matriarchal society is more flat, it's more equal, it's greater harmony between humans and nature. And so I would say we very much live in a patriarchal society. And I think it's very interesting when we look at in Barbie, where Ken is like, he's like super excited, right? He moves from the matriarchy into the patriarchy, and he's like, oh my God, people like looking at me, treating me with respect. Somebody asked me the time. He can't believe
Yeah.
that. And it's very cute,
Three
it's very
times.
adorable. But then he's like, well, the patriarch, well, and then like this guy, I don't know, a bank manager or someone, he's like, oh, well, we don't do that here, but like, isn't this the patriarch? And he's like, well, yeah, we just hide it better, we just hide it better. And I think that is very true.